welcome back to another episode of CRE, The Unspoken Truth. I'm Charlie Coppola, and this is my dad, Craig. Craig, you've been a broker, obviously, for 37 plus years now. The two of us are running CRE One Source, right, which is a software for commercial real estate brokers, mortgage brokers, and lenders, really all professionals in the commercial real estate space. We've taken this podcast and talked on a number of different topics. Today, our discussion is going to be on what do you do in a recession and how do you still find deals, make a living, make enough money to get through and come out the other side. And so I really want to start with, how do you know when you're in a recession?
Well, first of all, the official is 2 quarters of a row of a negative GDP and increased in unemployment. And we're at a really weird time right now. GDP's been down 2 quarters in a row. The current administration is saying it's not a recession. And why isn't it a recession? It's because they say there are 6 million people looking for jobs and there's 11 million jobs available. So jobs are easy to come by, in demand, employees are in demand. And then inflation is at 40-year high. So we're kind of at it's a weird recession, non-recession right now. And it does give us pause to say, we were talking about on another episode of this, is that the wind blowing in our face or in our back, it gives us pause because on both sides, there's wind swirling around. And so really, I think what we want to talk about today, the unspoken truth, is how do we make ourselves bulletproof for good times and bad times? And that's where a lot of companies fail during a blip in the recession, and then a lot of people make a lot of money in recession. So how do we become one of those that fares well in a recession?
Yeah. That's a good question. Go ahead and answer it if you have any.
So let's start with the basics. Something like 87% of all Americans can't afford to fix their refrigerator if it breaks. It's insane to me. Look, if you have no savings, get 6 months savings now. If you have a job, you should be saving money. You should have if you're a homeowner, Charlie, you're a new homeowner, should have 12 months savings. Why do we have savings? Well, it protects us. It's a buffer for when we have emergencies, and it's almost guaranteed that we're going to have an emergency. So step one is to, number one, get some savings. Number two, don't quit the job.
I would add to that, especially in a commission-based job, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Especially in a sales or commission-based job.
Yes, if you're a transaction-oriented person, which is our customer at One Source, if you're in the transaction business, transactions could stop in a recession. So you want to have a cushion to do that. So the people who survive have a cushion. And when I say cushion, they have savings, liquid savings, that they don't have to liquidate everything to live. And there's no reason, given since 2009, there's no reason anybody who's working today doesn't have savings. If they don't, then they haven't been paying attention and they're just spending and they're not having any delayed gratification. Number two, the second thing, and I say this all the time, don't be a dinosaur. What that means is get new skills. The market is always changing. We want to have new skills. Our software is one of those. Obviously, you should have automation in your transactions. If you don't have automations in your transactions, call us. Give us $130 a month and we'll automate your transactions. You'll have a skill set and you'll be way more automated than you were before the recession. And you'll be that much further than your competitors who aren't doing this. So it's not just One Source. You have to start looking at it's expensive to have a team. It's expensive to do other things. Automation can help you save that. Learning new skill sets, learning Excel, you're certified Excel master, getting your MBA, getting a designation like CCIM, SIOR. Really, when I say bulletproof your financials, then bulletproof who you are. The numbers are out there. CCIMs make more money than non-CCIMs. SIORs make more money than CCIMs, and CCIMs and SIORs make more money than just an SIOR CCIM. Those are just the stats. Why would you not get those designations today? So that's the second, is improve yourself, get yourself better. The third thing is to really develop and take your relationships deeper. When the market gets tough, people are stealing clients, and you don't want them to steal your clients. You want to be the one stealing. And so you have to have great relationships. If you have mediocre relationships, improve those. So those are 3 ways just off the top of my head, Charlie, that I think people can, and they should be doing all those things anyways. It's like, it's not magic.
I wrote them down and I'm reading them right now, right? Get new skills, have savings, better, deeper relationships. I mean, that's true for any part of the cycle, right? Whether you're in a recession or not, you should be working on all 3 of those, especially if you're committed to your craft and growing yourself in this career. You know, professionals do all of those things.
You'll know this because I use baseball analogies. I call it bunt defense. We work every single practice in baseball on our bunt defense. And why do we do that? Because bunt defense is going to come around. If you have a 40-game season, it's going to come around 2 or 3 times, but those 2 or 3 times is going to be critical. And you want to be able to execute it, and you can't just execute on it. So savings and learning and growing and deepening relationships is bunt defense. You have to work on it every day, recession regardless. But it is even more important knowing that we have playoffs coming up, or we have a team that can bunt a lot, that we spend even more time on it, and knowing that we're at this choppy time in the cycle, why we are not working on our bunt defense. And these 3 things, there's other things that we can talk about that will also enhance that, but absolutely all the time, bunt defense, getting better, bulletproof. Think about it.
So the market starts to decline, deals start to dry up. Is that one of the indicators? Is like, hey, there's fewer deals out there and they're becoming more competitive?
Well, it depends on what segment you're in. There's always transactions.
Every market's a little different. Yeah.
Well, if you're a land broker and the market takes the land folks can take 2 years off and just travel the world. I mean, there's sometimes when the recession hits, because people want to wait for the bottom on a land deal. Land's not cash flowing. So the land brokers, they kill it when the market's on the way up, and then they have a 2-year hiatus, 3-year hiatus when the market's not happening. And then they kill it at the bottom because people come back in and snag properties up at the bottom. What we do for a living, because we're representing tenants and landlords, there's always businesses, leases are expiring. There'll be less leases. People won't be taking more square footage. So it does become more competitive. You might not make, your $1 zillion, you might make less than that. But the idea is, and that would be a 4th thing, live below your means, right? If you've upped, it's very difficult to last through a recession. If you have this massive lifestyle where you're spending money like crazy, and you have car payments and house payments and trip payments and visa payments, that you're not going to do well in a recession. So, so it just depends. Deals get trickier. They get harder to make. They take longer. It's instead of being a 90-day deal, it might take 6 to 12 months to do. So you're dragging out, and you need the patience to be able to last through it.
Are there opportunities to get deals from a different source when the market changes? Like, do you guys find yourself being more creative? I know we've talked about you always have to change and kind of adjust to the trends in the market. So I would assume that's something you're kind of doing anyway, but is there something, hey, the market's declining, that's going to open up an opportunity here and here, so let's really focus on those parts?
Yeah, like, and there's a lot of people that do this, but when the market starts declining and banks start getting foreclosures, then people make money on receivers, and you can deal more with the banks. So there are avenues in every part of the cycle. There are different opportunities for people to make money. It's harder for bigger companies to kind of turn, like a CBRE or JLL. they are very much specialists. So, if they're selling multifamily, that's what they get to do. And so if their market dries up, then they're not immediately selling mini storages. It's difficult for them to make that change because they're pretty specialized. Smaller folks, smaller brokers and smaller markets can pivot on a dime and start chasing other things and become a specialist pretty quick. It is hard to say, but yes, the answer is, in general, there is always an opportunity somewhere somebody's making money or losing money in a market. And if you're in the transaction business, how you portray that and how you do that, which is another reason why you want to be so savvy in learning the marketplace, as we talked before, but also in your skill set so that you know what you're looking for and you can get to it pretty quickly.
Yep. You talked about land, and then you talked about leasing. If someone was going to buy a multifamily property or an industrial building, I would imagine it's similar, right? If the market's declining, prices are going down, those with capital and those with the ability to wait longer, or who are maybe sellers of the building who aren't needing to sell, have more flexibility and may be able to ride it out, right? So is that having capital, is that another, or capital or time flexibility, is that another kind of thing that you look at?
Yeah, what really happens and why the recession hits in commercial real estate is the bid versus ask is the market gets bigger. Owners think their property's worth $1 million and it's going to be $1 million for the next year, even though the market's declining. The buyers think, yeah, it's $1 million today, but I think in 6 months it's going to be 900,000. So I don't want to get stuck with $100,000 loss. So the bid ask gets bigger, and we're seeing that bid ask get bigger today. And so you're looking for, and sometimes the best sellers are the sellers that say, I don't need to sell this, I don't have any debt on it. I've been working with this guy, his name's Clyde Buckstaff. He's Andrew's grandfather, Andrew's grandfather, and he owns this retail center. And I've been talking to him 4 or 5 years, but he owns it free and clear. He's like 86 years old. He gets all these offers. He just, I don't need to sell it. And he keeps getting higher offers. And so he's just not a seller. And it's great because he's in such a good position. He's so bulletproof. And then you deal with other people. Institutions, for instance, have time limits on their money. This fund is closing down in the next 12 months, so they have to sell it regardless of whether it's a good time to sell it or not. So you can pick up that. Banks tend to, they don't necessarily want to foreclose. So you might be able to buy a note from a bank who doesn't want to foreclose on their borrower, or you can buy an REO property because they don't want to hold them on their asset sheet, on their balance sheet. So there's a whole bunch of ways and things that happen in the marketplace as it moves that are out there and available to people, receiverships, those kinds of things. And you just have to learn to take advantage of it.
Yep. And so some of my big takeaways is just making yourself or your team, your company, your position bulletproof, right? And you can do that by staying ahead of trends and staying really up to date with your skill set. Make sure your skill set is modernized and relevant to where the market is headed. Have savings, all right, more savings and more kind of personal flexibility is a way to bulletproof yourself. And of course, we've done a whole conversation on this, but have deeper and more meaningful relationships. Those will carry you through tough times for sure.
Yeah, the people that tend to do well have reoccurring clients that are always doing something, whether it be a tenant that has 30 or 40 offices across the country, or somebody who's always buying because they're growing for their business. They have great clients. They have very low debt on their house. Their payments are low, and you should, after going through the last 10 years where interest rates were at historical lows, there should be almost nobody on this who owns a house should have a high house payment unless they way overpaid for the house. They should have savings. And this is everybody on your team, not just the brokers, everybody on the team, because there might be some lean months for even staff members. And to be shocked to my story on Steubenville, Ohio, to be shocked that there's a recession. Why didn't somebody tell me there was a recession coming? Why didn't you tell me that the steel mill was going to close? Is ignorance does not mean that you're excused from the marketplace reality.
Right. Well, awesome. It's been great talking about recessions with you. As always, another episode of CRE, The Unspoken Truth. Thanks so much.
Thank you.